Okay, let's unpack what's happening in the market this Wednesday morning.
Right.
We're seeing a bit of a cautious slide in early trading.
Yeah, just modest declines for the Dow, S&P, NASDAQ.
Seems everyone's sort of holding their breath, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. It's all about those earnings coming after the bell, isn't it?
Hmm.
Nvidia and Salesforce.
Huge ones. Feels like the market's just waiting on them.
It really does. And, what's interesting are the mixed signals floating around.
Like what?
Well, that dip we saw in the 10-year Treasury yield yesterday, that's reversed, taking back up towards, what, 4.48%?
Okay, right.
And crude oil prices, they're
There.
recovering too. Gained over 1%, back above 60.89 or so.
So not exactly a clear picture across the board.
Not at all. And you see that reflected in how the market's reacting to other earnings too.
Yeah, I saw Okta took a hit, even though the results looked okay.
Exactly. Solid numbers, decent near-term guidance, but the full-year outlook sounded a bit cautious.
So maybe hinting that customers are tightening up a bit.
That seems to be the read, yeah. But then you look at Heiko crushed it. Stocks hitting new highs.
Right, and box.
Box too, yeah.
Hmm.
Beat and raise. Good response there.
So investors are being really picky, aren't they?
Very selective. It highlights that, just having a good current quarter isn't enough. Future outlook is key.
Makes sense. Which brings us back to yesterday, that big Taco Tuesday rally.
Yeah. Quite the surge.
Dow's up nearly 2%, S&P over 2%, NASDAQ and Russell both around 2.5%. What was the driver again?
It was the postponement of those EU tariffs.
Right, the Trump always chickens out thing. That nickname pops up when trade tensions ease off.
Precisely. We've seen that pattern before. Gave the market a real jolt.
But now that optimism is bumping up against these big earnings expectations.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Which leads us straight into the main events, really. The anticipation around Nvidia, Salesforce, and, well, Tesla's continued strength.
Okay, let's dive straight into Nvidia then. I mean, it feels like their report tonight is just massive for AI stocks, for tech generally.
Oh, absolutely pivotal. Nvidia's become the undisputed bellwether for AI.
The main signal.
Yeah, where they go, the sector often follows. Analysts are looking for pretty big numbers for the April quarter.
Like what sort of growth?
Around 20% year-over-year earnings growth. And
Wow.
get this, a 66% jump in revenue to $43.34 billion.
Wow, 66%.
Huge numbers. But the real focus, I think, will be on those new U.S. AI export restrictions.
That's the big unknown, isn't it? How much will those rules bite?
Exactly. Nvidia already flagged a potential hit, maybe $5.5 billion, related to blocked H20 chip sales to China.
That's a serious chunk of change.
It is. And beyond that, investors will be listening really closely for updates on Blackwell production.
Their new chip platform.
Right. They need reassurance on manufacturing that they can actually make and deliver these things.
Makes sense. And you mentioned other AI-related stocks, Broadcom, Taiwan Semi, ServiceNow. They're nearby points.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, they're sitting at interesting levels. Nvidia's guidance tonight could really move that whole group.
So good news from Nvidia could lift them all.
Could provide a real tailwind, yeah. Especially if they sound confident about demand and navigating those export rules. But, the opposite is also true.
Any weakness could drag the whole sector down.
Precisely. It's high stakes.
Okay. Let's shift over to Salesforce then. Their report feels like maybe a pulse check for the broader business software market.
That's a good way to put it. Are companies still spending big on software? That's the question.
And the expectations there are different from Nvidia, right?
Wow.
More modest.
Much more tempered, yeah. Analysts are thinking modest single-digit growth, both earnings and revenue. It's a different beast than AI, more about steady growth in a mature market.
And this comes right after they announced that big deal to buy Informatica, $8 billion.
Right, that's a key piece of context. I'm sure they'll get questions on the call about how Informatica fits in, the strategy there.
Yeah, how it drives growth. Because their stock performance has been kind of sluggish lately.
It has been, yeah. It's trading below its 200-day moving average, even after bouncing off the 50-day line yesterday.
Still way off that peak from late last year. What was it, 369?
Somewhere around there, yeah. Feels like a while ago.
So this report seems pretty important for them to maybe rebuild some confidence?
Definitely. They need to articulate that vision for growth, address any concerns about organic slowdown, and really sell the value of acquisitions like Informatica.
Okay, got it. Now, Tesla. Always an interesting one. Little weaker today, but after a huge jump yesterday.
Yeah, the 7% surge on Tuesday was impressive. Took it up to 362.92.
And you mentioned it broke some technical level.
Yeah, according to some analysts, it broke above an aggressive entry point around 354.99. That opens up a potential buy zone, technically speaking, up to about 372.74.
So the chart looks pretty strong right now.
Technically, yes, showing renewed momentum.
And this is the interesting part. This is happening even with reports about their sales maybe softening. It feels like a disconnect.
It does feel like a disconnect between the stock price action and some of the underlying fundamentals, yeah.
So what's driving the stock enthusiasm then?
It really seems to be pinned on the robotaxi story,
Mm.
that limited launch they're planning for next month in Austin.
Ah, the future potential.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The market appears willing to place a really high value on the potential of autonomous driving, even if current car sales face headwinds.
So investors are looking past current challenges, betting big on that future tech transforming things.
That seems to be the narrative driving the stock right now.
Mm.
It really shows how sometimes future potential can, overshadow current reality and valuations, especially for companies seen as major disruptors.
Fascinating dynamic. Okay, so just to sort of wrap up where we are this morning,
Yeah,
market's basically in a holding pattern, waiting for Nvidia, waiting for Salesforce.
pretty much.
We've seen mixed reactions elsewhere showing investors are being careful, selective.
Yep, very choosy right now.
And then you've got Tesla powering ahead on that robotaxi dream, even with some questions about current sales.
That sums it up well. This morning's trading just reflects that anticipation, that pause before the big data drops.
So as we finish this deep dive, I guess the big questions are, what will the impact be from Nvidia and Salesforce tonight? On AI, on software?
Crucial questions for the next market phase.
And, can Tesla keep this momentum going just on the robotaxi hype if those sales concerns don't go away?
That's the million-dollar question for Tesla investors, isn't it?
Definitely food for thought, how these specific company stories really echo the bigger picture of market sentiment right now. Something for all of you listening to mull over.